Alright, welcome back everybody. Gaming Grandpa here, trying to finish up my tutorial on the MLS Explained for Football Manager 23. This is part 12. I have 2 parts left after this. This will probably be the shortest episode in the series. This is how to relinquish players from your roster. Alright, everybody should know a few ways automatically. You don't even have to be in the MLS to get rid of players, to get them off your roster. Obviously, releasing them is the easiest way to do that. Sometimes you have to pay compensation, sometimes you don't. However, in the MLS, if a player has a guaranteed contract, and we've gone through this, and you release them, there's a chance that it still will impact your salary cap. The best way to do that, to make sure it doesn't impact it, is to release them during the off season. Now, if it's during the season and you go up to try to release a player, you're going to notice that it's no longer released, it's going to be waived. And we've talked about that too. Now, I have a few images here that I want you to look when you're waiving players. The first one is to the bottom left where it says waive player. It says, I was trying, for tutorial purposes only, I was going to show you what happens when I waive 2 players that are making the max budget charge, which is the $651,000. All right, so I wanted to release or waive Lowen, and it gave me this pop-up, and it says, just so you know, that every club once a year is allowed a guaranteed contract buyout option. So what that means is, out of these 2 players, I could waive both of them, and I'm only going to get hit with the salary cap, potentially get hit with the salary cap for one of them, because I can buy out the other player's contract, and then they no longer have a contract. The MLS rights revert back to the league, not my club, and then I'm not charged the $651,000. However, it impacts my transfer budget. So if you don't have the money in your transfer budget, and you're not going to be able to do that. So it's just really, really crazy. Now, that's the first image. And if you notice, I waived Berkey and I waived Lowen. And Berkey is the top image on the right. It says that, we invoked our guaranteed contract buyout option on him. So that means that his salary doesn't impact the cap. Now, if you look down, it says that I've already used it. Therefore, that Lowen's salary will impact the salary cap, and anybody else I waive after that has a guaranteed contract, or it's the dates. We already covered that too. So just be careful when you're waiving players. It's not always a bad thing. If somebody can pick them up, then they automatically assume the contract. But if they don't, and there's a chance you're going to end up paying for a player that's not on your team. So I don't even advise waiving a player, honestly. If you want to get rid of them, transfer list them, get them the heck out of there, do trades, take as little as you can to get them out of there, or wait until the season's over and then release them on a free, and, it would call it a day, all right? But that's the 2 ways that you can get rid of players, is releasing them and waiving them, and both can impact your salary cap, so just keep that in mind. Now, the good thing about Football Manager with the MLS is whenever you do something, it always prompts you and warns you what's going to be the impact if you do said move. So that's what that image on the bottom left is for. So, that's another good thing. Now, if you don't show that message again, you're not going to be able to confirm it. So I don't ever do that when I'm waiving or releasing players or anything like that. I always leave them messages and make them pop up each time. That reminds me, oh crap, I don't want to do that. Okay? Now, everybody knows what mutual termination is. It's when the club offers to buy out the player's current contract in order for him to leave the club. It's not necessarily his full contract, but the player is going to somehow submit a magic number to my general manager, and then that's what they're going to argue over, and then boom, that's the amount that's going to get hit. So when you mutually terminate them, you don't know what that amount is going to be, or if they're even going to accept it. But if they do accept it, then they're no longer on your team. The MLS rights revert back to the league. You lose rights to them, and then it comes out of your transfer budget. Now, if it's a guaranteed contract, it can also affect your salary cap. But then again, everything I've talked about can affect your salary cap. All right. Once again, it's best to do that in the off season. Now, trading, I already covered that. I'm not going to cover that. That's a way to get rid of players, and you know this. Loaning players. All right. If you're loaning them to your Pro Next or your Pro team or any affiliate club that you have, you are responsible for paying 100% of the player's salary. It's not even an option. That was the deal that the league established with each club that have youth academies and B teams, is that those clubs are not responsible for the players' salaries that you send to these clubs, okay? I mean, after all, it's like your minor league teams in baseball, you know. They're not responsible for paying a salary if you send players to them. You are. So it's a similar process, so just keep that in mind, okay? Now, you can loan them out to other teams outside of MLS and make them pay part of their salary, and that's fine. But keep in mind also on the loaning, if you loan a player to another team outside of MLS, there's a good chance it's going to affect your salary cap if they don't pay 100% of the salary. So just keep that in mind also. All right, the last thing I'm going to talk about before I end this video is transfers. All right, that's pretty much, everybody should be used to transfers by now if you played Football Manager. However, in the MLS, it works the same way as far as transferring them out. However, the fees and everything else involved with the money, it's really complex and complicated. All right, the very first image you're going to see is that I actually sold a player, Celio. I sold him to PAR, and it tells me that subject to conditions, the transfer may eventually rise to $350,000. However, right now they gave me $200,000 up front, and if you notice, it says this will be added to the transfer budget on completion of the deal. However, and this is a big however, go down to my next image. It says the first $1,650,000 goes into your allocation money. So if I have, 10 transfers and I'm only getting $200,000 each, none of that's ever going to make it to my transfer budget. It's going to automatically recover as allocation money. Now, that's good and it's bad. I mean, in this case, on this team, I really would rather have the money in my transfer budget because I only have like a couple $100,000 left because I've been going wild buying young players that will probably never ever play for me. But that's a business decision. So in this case, from that deal up top, remember the first image, it says the board have agreed $200,000 to my transfer budget, and then now look at here, it says from the transfer, St. Louis City have been awarded $200,000 in general allocation money. That's after the deal went through, so none of that went into my transfer funds. It automatically went into my allocation money. Okay, just keep that in mind. Now, here's another thing to remember whenever you transfer a player off your team that's not involved in a trade. The MLS will always get their cut. Okay, it ranges from 25% up to 75%, and it varies. I honestly could not tell you what makes it vary. I've sold like Celio, and I sold one other player. They were both from the same country. They've both been on my team for the same amount of time, and they were both the same age. And yet one was $67,000 and one was $25,000. I've also seen $45,000, and I've seen up to $75,000 or 75%. I just don't know really how that's programmed into Football Manager. It's really crazy. But whenever you transfer a player outside of the MLS, and this includes to the minor leagues that I call them, all right, to the Canadian leagues, the MLS Pro leagues and stuff like that. Like if I was going to sell a player to North Carolina, my affiliate, I would still get charged 25% because they consider that selling players abroad. And it's really crazy. So anyhow, out of that Celio transfer fee, okay, 49% of that automatically went to the league. And then if you notice, I've had installments set up on that one, and I did that for a reason. That way you can see that the MLS will also receive that much money in installments. Now, I am going to get a percentage of that, but most of it is going to, 25% of everything goes to the league, okay? It's really crazy. I sold a player for $350,000, and the league took 67% of it, so I really didn't get much money back. However, it's a good way to increase your allocation money for the current year. All right, so keep that in mind. But it's really crazy. But that's pretty much the ways that you can get rid of players. Obviously, there's, the worst case scenario, a player dies or something happens to him, they get removed off your team or they get retired. But, we don't need to go into that because that's just common sense. So anyhow, this is all that's related to MLS for relinquishing players. My next episode is going to be on how to register your team. You're going to be able to watch me do that on my tutorial team. And then we'll have one episode left after that. So anyway, guys, leave me a thumbs up if you enjoy what I'm doing. Subscribe. That way you can get more videos, notifications, and whatnot. And leave me comments. I love comments. But anyway, thanks again for watching, and have a good day.